Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win, or you find a way to lose. Very interesting. The landscape of the heavyweight division is changing before our very eyes. That being said, there's some of these other top heavyweights whose names we know, but they're not really at the forefront of the heavyweight division. But now that it seems that Deontay Wilder is out of the mix for now, whether he's retired or just nursing injuries, whatever his situation is, he's out of the mix. So let's just set him aside. With Tyson Fury now, looks like he's calling it quits. He's retiring, and he's earned the right to do so. Just like Wilder, he's earned the right to do so. But there's nothing else for Tyson Fury to accomplish. I think that's the biggest discernment between the two. There's nothing left for Tyson Fury to accomplish. He's done it all. So he's going to go off into the sunset and relax. I actually think Tyson Fury's wife may be pregnant again, so maybe child number 7. So that being said, it leaves us with, we all know about AJ. We all know Dillian White. But Joseph Parker and Joe Joyce may be the two top other heavyweights outside of Wilder, Fury, Dillian White, and Anthony Joshua. Well, you have Usyk, those 5. But after those 5, there's a lot of heavyweights there. Some of the names aren't really known, but Joe Joyce, and Joseph Parker are probably the next 2 in line. And it's a very interesting matchup for Joyce and Parker, because Parker has been looking exceptional. He won his last 6 fights since losing to Dillian White. And Joe Joyce is 13-0, and he has 12 knockouts. So when you look at the fight that they're making, if you're wondering why in the world would they match up Joseph Parker with Joe Joyce, well, the answer is simple. When it comes to the WBO, Joe Joyce is number 1, Parker's number 2. Okay, that's one reason. Second reason, Joseph Parker, he might as well be adopted by the UK, because that's where he fights the most. Joseph Parker has found his niche, and his niche is fighting in the UK. He is very fortunate to have come out there with his boxing ability, but I really think Joseph Parker is in the positions, has been in the positions he's been in, especially for the last, ever since he fought AJ, as a result of his personality. I think his personality wins people over. He's so low threat. He's so easygoing. He's so likable. He's not disrespectful. He doesn't want any problems. But when he gets in that ring, he fights, and he fights hard. And he's an excellent boxer with a punch. So that's why I think Joseph Parker keeps finding himself in fights, getting pretty good paydays, and just in an excellent position. Plus, he's an ex-heavyweight champion as well. Remember, he and Ruiz fought several years ago in New Zealand. A bit controversial, but seemed to be a fight that could have gone either way. So it is what it is. But fast forward to where we are now. When it comes to Joseph Parker, we need to understand with Joseph Parker, from New Zealand, Samoan. He weighs over 200 pounds. He's probably weighing about 240-something pounds. He's at 6'4". His reach is 76 inches. So his reach is actually less than Dillian White's, where Joe Joyce's reach is 80 inches. So that's going to be interesting. Not much of a difference in the reach category, but yeah, both of them reaches are pretty comparable. But then Joseph Parker, he's a heavy hitter as well. 30 wins, 2 losses, 21 KOs. Unlike Joe Joyce, he only has 13 fights, but he has 12 KOs. But the thing with Joe Joyce is he was a silver medalist as well as the Olympics. So Joe Joyce just turned pro late. That's why him at 36, he's older. He's actually older. He has 6 years on Joseph Parker, but Joseph Parker is the experienced and seasoned fighter. Now, when you look at Joseph Parker in his last fights, his last 2 fights were against Dereck Chisora, which Dereck Chisora put up a valiant effort, but just wasn't enough. Just wasn't enough. Okay, Joseph Parker was just, I think he was more fresh. That's all that was. He's just fresher fighter, hasn't been through all the battles, younger, and I think that's really what won Joseph Parker those fights. Then, so that's Dereck Chisora, the last 2. Then when you get beyond Dereck Chisora, you look at Junior Fa, and you look at Shondell Winters, Alex Lepide, and Alexander Flores. And all 6 of those fights came after he lost to Dillian White. And the thing about that fight with Dillian White, although Dillian White looks quite simple, he was outboxing and beating Joseph Parker. Now, during that fight, it told us a lot more about Dillian White than Joseph Parker until the end of that fight. But early in the fight, there was a headbutt. The referee called a knockdown, which wasn't. It was a headbutt. Dillian White headbutt him. It was an accident, but it happened. And then later in the fight, Dillian White, I think it was on the 8th or 10th round, dropped him with a hook, clean hook, almost got him out of there. So Dillian White was ahead on the scorecards. But then this is what tells you a lot about Joseph Parker. When I said at the end of the fight, tells you a lot about Joseph Parker, is because Dillian White got, excited, still wanted to be aggressive, still wanted to put forth maximum violence, close the short strongly. And in doing so, he got caught with a big shot, and Dillian White was out, gone. The end of the round saved him. Another 10 seconds, Dillian White loses that fight by knockout. Another round, Dillian White loses that fight by stoppage. So it was one of those fights where Joseph Parker wanted to get the rematch because he knew that he could beat Dillian White. But he never got the opportunity, and there's a reason for that, because Dillian White knew that, hey, this guy can really fight. So you look at where Joseph Parker is now, that's how he's able to get back into position to fight Joe Joyce and going to become the mandatory for whoever holds the WBO belt. He came back after losing to Dillian White and won 6 fights in a row. And out of those 6 fights, 3 of them were by knockout, the others were by split decision or unanimous decision. The one split decision was to Dereck Chisora in their first meeting, which some people felt Dereck Chisora won. So Joseph Parker isn't a guy who's just hanging around, and although he's formed good relationships with, from Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, all the heavyweight boxers over there, even the ones he's fought, they have a lot of respect for him just because of how he operates, how he moves. He's a very kind-hearted, soft-spoken guy, very friendly, and that's why he's finding himself in these positions, because he's winning and he's easy to like him. So, but he's not getting handouts, because I'm going to give you an example, right? I had several people underneath me at one point in time in my life, right? And I would tell them, I want to help improve your family situation. In the position I was in, I was able to do that. I said, but you have to give me something. Like, I'm not just going to do it for you, but I'm going to tell you, this is what you need to do. If you help yourself, I'll help you. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. You're not just going to eat. You got to earn it. And I can see that being the same kind of conversation with Joseph Parker after he had the loss to Anthony Joshua. Kind of like, hey, we like you. The people over here like you. You can put butts in seats here in the UK, but you got to come back. You got to win fights. And I really feel that that's what happened. After AJ, they saw what happened with Dillian White. They were like, wow. Because those were back-to-back defeats for Joseph Parker. But to come back, fight Dillian White, and lose 2 in a row, he was in a position. His back was in the wall. He had to come back and get some victories. So he started off decent opposition, but not the elite. And then he worked his way back up to Chisora. Decent, better than decent, not elite, but Chisora had kind of breathed life back into his career, working with David Hay, new training regimen. Dereck Chisora had a second part to his career. And Joseph Parker was able to get out there and defeat him. So now he's back at the top. And that's how Joseph Parker ended up in this position. Now, when you talk about Joe Joyce, he hasn't had those signature fights. He's only had 13 fights, okay? So, but the thing is his amateur pedigree and the fact that they call him the Juggernaut for a reason. See, a lot of people, I don't think, when they hear people's nicknames, they really don't look into it. But with Joe Joyce, and you think about his alias, the Juggernaut, a huge, powerful, overwhelming force or institution. And he is that kind, and he is a juggernaut of a boxer. And we need to understand that with Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce is not like Parker, standing 6'4". Joe Joyce is 6'6", 6'7". He's up there with Anthony Joshua. He's up there with the Deontay Wilders. He's up there with the Dominique Brazils, with the Tyson Fury 6'9". But all those guys are giants, man. I mean, 6'4" is big, Joseph Parker, but 6'6", 6'7", that's another level. So he's a big boy, and he's not skinny. He's in great shape, extremely muscular, and he has probably the best chin in boxing. Joe Joyce. You're not gonna knock him out. He's human, so you may be able to buzz him a little bit, but he recovers quickly. You're not, and he's gonna keep coming forward, keep applying pressure, and keep letting his hands go. That I think is gonna be what gives Joseph Parker a lot of problems. Because how long can you dance and box and move when you have this juggernaut coming at you who can fight, who hits hard, and who just wears you down and breaks you down with nonstop punching. And you can't knock him out. Unless you come in there and bring a bat. Matter of fact, the bat will probably break if you hit Joe Joyce with it. Joe Joyce is really a force to be reckoned with. But, Joe Joyce is weighing the same thing, 240, 250 pounds. His reach, 80 inches. And you look at him, man, although he only had 13 fights, 12 of them by knockout, 92% KO ratio, that's respectable. As far as opponents, you got to still give him credit because Joe Joyce, last fight, man, was in July last year. He fought Carlos Takam and he stopped him. Like, that's just not easy to do. Not everybody stops Carlos Takam. So Carlos Takam is a really good gauge on the direction someone's going. Because if you can beat Carlos Takam, then that means you're ready for the elite. Because most people who fight Takam have a tough time. He's not a pushover, and Carlos Takam has only lost to the elite. So he's an excellent gauge for whether a guy like Joe Joyce is ready to step up to the next level, which is Joseph Parker. Before that, he fought Daniel Dubois. I personally thought he was going to beat Daniel Dubois. He did not. I personally thought Daniel Dubois was going to beat Joe Joyce. Daniel Dubois did not beat him. I was very surprised. Daniel Dubois had some good moments in that fight. The problem was Joe Joyce's chin and his work rate, and just his using that 80-inch reach, dropping that jab, dropping the right hand, landing in the same spot every time. And he broke Daniel Dubois' upper bone. It's a lot of that going on in boxing, especially over the last couple of years. He broke it, and Dubois still wanted to fight. He was actually up. He was doing a great job, but you could just see the difference in conditioning, the difference in mentality, and the difference in their body's ability to take punishment. Because Joe Joyce was getting hit, he was getting bruised, but some fighters tend to have a tendency to swell more, to cut easier than other fighters. And Daniel Dubois, you gotta understand, Joe Joyce, like sledgehammer type fists and punches. So when he keeps repeatedly hitting somebody in the same place, especially with such a soft area around here, and that bone is easy to break, that's more than likely what's gonna happen. But Joe Joyce wanted to continue, but he couldn't. Then before that, Michael Wallace, Brian Jennings, these are names that we're familiar with, but they're not really huge names, but they're formidable opponents. Before that was Alexander Ustinov, then Bermane Stiverne. We all know who Bermane Stiverne is, but at this point, Bermane Stiverne is not the Bermane Stiverne that clipped Areola in those two fights. It's not the same Stiverne. It's not the Stiverne that fought Deontay Wilder in the first fight. Deontay Wilder ruined Stiverne, but it's still a name. Stiverne still was, at that time, 25 wins, like 2 losses, and maybe like 17, 18 knockouts. I don't have his record in front of me, but I know he had 25 wins, like 2 or 3 losses. But, good name. So this right here is probably the biggest challenge of Joe Joyce's career. And Parker, at 30 years old, Parker's not on the way to retirement. Parker is looking to get back into title contention and win another belt. Even maybe fight the winner of AJ and Usyk if he can clip Joe Joyce. Now that Fury's looking to disappear, I got to find out if he can relinquish that WBC belt. That's something that he was talking about. But I got to look at the video to find out about that. But, these guys here, depending on who wins, that's going to springboard them to a really big fight. And it should be against the winner between AJ and Usyk. If not, there's going to be some step-aside fees and things getting paid, because that's the thing when these guys have all these belts. You got to prioritize. The sanctioning bodies have to conversate. Like, they got to figure out what's going to happen, because they're all going to want whoever's the top one, the mandatory, and then underneath their body, they're going to want their guy to get the fight. But it's just so much politics that get involved at that point. So when you look at Parker and Joyce, as far as their dimensions, pretty close. Age is probably the biggest disparity when it comes to these two. But I think just their passion and their desire to win this next fight, they both know what's riding on it. They both know. Joe Joyce is 36, although he only had 13 professional fights. Time isn't on his side. And that's something they've been saying, like Frank Warren, for years about Joe Joyce. They're ready to fast track him and move him. It's almost like a Lomachenko. With that kind of amateur pedigree, you don't bring him in and put him in there with, the first 15, 20 fighters, tomato cans. No, you put him in there with the elite. He can handle it. And Joe Joyce has been proving that he can handle what they throw at him. The problem is the people he faced can't handle it. Joseph Parker has proved that he can handle what you throw at him, and the opponents they face, for the most part, can't handle him. He finds a way to win. Now, when these two come together, I just think Joe Joyce is going to use the same approach he used with AJ. Trying to be faster, trying to box, trying to move, and I think that's going to hurt him. Because I think he's going to get that on the scorecards, because Joe Joyce is going to keep plodding along, and that simple Tyson Fury-esque kind of galloping style towards you, letting his shots go. You hit him 3-4 times, he come back to let his one go. Hopefully he learns to cut the ring off. But Joe Joyce is, these guys look simple, but there's something there. And they just keep chopping you down. And I think what's going to happen with Parker, I think if he can't hurt Joe Joyce by round 6, when the fight starts to slow a little bit, at least when Parker starts to slow a little bit, and Joyce puts that pressure on, I think by round 10, Joe Joyce stops Parker. It's just too much of a damn bull, man. Like, Joe Joyce is just too much of a bull, man. It's like a piece of steel. I just don't see Parker being able to hurt him or stop him. True, he's human, I get it, but he hasn't shown to be human when he gets into the boxing ring. And I think that's going to be a huge issue for Parker. I think Joe Joyce is a huge problem for anyone that gets in the ring to fight him. I actually think he's the guy to go on, and if he gets a chance to fight for belts, to go on and win the belts from everyone. I think he's the next undisputed champion in the heavyweight division if he gets that opportunity. That's just me. I'm going to throw that out there. Could be wrong. And I know he only has 13 fights, but just looking at him, looking how he's performed, and just looking at those qualities that he possesses, it doesn't matter about the level of opposition, because he's been getting better as far as his level of opposition. It's hard to say that those qualities won't give the elite heavyweight fighters problems. They're going to create problems, huge problems, especially with that chin, unless a guy like Deontay Wilder with that crazy right hand lands it. I just can't see him taking that shot, but who knows? But that's what's going on with these guys, man. They're looking to fight in July, which is interesting because AJ is looking to fight Usyk in July. Joe Joyce and Parker are going to fight in the UK. But, AJ and Usyk, as of right now with Hearn, they're looking to stage that over there in Saudi Arabia. So we'll see if this is a lead-in to a fight with the winner of Usyk and AJ. It may be because again, these guys, the number 1 and 2 in the WBO, so the winner of these guys is gonna be the mandatory to get a shot at for the unified heavyweight championship. Now we just gotta, or maybe one of these guys, depending on where their ranking is in the other sanctioning bodies, I didn't pull that up, but I'll take a look at it. Maybe if Tyson Fury relinquishes the belt, who knows what may happen. Next thing you know, we may find the two of them fighting for the WBC strap. But you just never know. And although that may not be standard practice, this is boxing, man. It's all about money. It's all about people, these sanctioning bodies doing what's best for them, not necessarily the fighter. So let's not say what can't happen. Anything can happen. But so more to come on how that's going to play out. But for right now, Joe Joyce, Joseph Parker fighting in July, number 1 and number 2, WBO, mandatory, WBO ranked, and then Tyson Fury maybe relinquishing that WBC belt, also in July, AJ and Usyk fighting. See what I'm saying? It could be pretty interesting going to the end of the year. One of these two fighting the winner of that fight, especially if Tyson Fury says, you know what, I'm really done. And I think that's the direction this is going to go. That being said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I just think these two guys are next in line. I really do. You got everybody else is busy about retiring and not boxing anymore at the moment. So these two, you got Dubois, you got Otto Walden, you got it's not even the Polish guy anymore, man. He got beat down so bad by the guy, I think he's from Sweden, man. I can't remember his name, but he beat him down twice, almost killed him. He's a problem, but we'll see if he gets what he's gonna do. But I have to look him up, and I'm gonna do a little video about all these heavyweights who are bubbling right now, and just try to. I'm gonna go ahead and do my best guess pick of who I think is gonna rise to the top. But there's some great heavyweights out there, and this is their opportunity. I mean, Wilder out the picture, Fury out the picture. Those are probably the top two. AJ's still lingering around. Dillian White's probably his time is probably over. So what's next? But anyway, Parker, Joyce, July this year. AJ, Usyk, July this year. We'll see what happens with those 4 horsemen. See how it plays out. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for your support. Shout out to all the veterans, and as always, I'm in the breeze.